Well, we do have somebody who's relatively new in that area, so.
Good evening and welcome to City Council, our March 6th meeting. I can't believe it's already March. I'm going to go ahead and call to order our meeting, and with the invocation and pledge led by Mr. Weaver.
Let us do that which brings happiness and joy to others, and avoid doing
Thank you. Jeremy, will you please call the roll?
Angelou.
Here.
Bowers.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Padova.
Here.
Renner.
Here.
Schnetzer. Weaver.
here.
Excellent, thank you. Item B, additions or corrections to the agenda. Do we have anything? Okay. Item C, hearing of visitors. We first have a resolution presentation by council. Ms. Bowers?
Thank you. I'll start by going down to the podium and giving an introduction of our honored guests tonight, and then I will invite the remainder of council to come down and join us for some photos. Okay. So these are some very familiar faces if you've spent any time around Gahanna, and I know you all have. Christy Evans and Carrie Hawk are two really incredible volunteers, not just with the Historical Society, but across the city of Gahanna. And with tonight's Women's History Month resolution having the theme of celebrating women who tell our stories, I thought it was particularly relevant to tell the stories of two of our greatest historians and storytellers here in Gahanna. Both Christy and Carrie are lifelong residents of Gahanna. Christy Evans developed an interest and a passion in uncovering the history of the Big Walnut Country Club. It led her to uncover personal stories about patrons and children and members of the country club, which resulted in the formation of her research along with others, and the vision committee for the Big Walnut Country Club bringing to fruition the first historical marker in the city of Gahanna. So congratulations and thank you to Christy Evans. A new car. No, not the budget. Next, I want to share a little bit more about Carrie Hawk. As I mentioned, I think we all know Carrie, and we've seen Carrie around a lot, but Carrie is almost to a fault modest and humble. So I want to take some time to shed some light on her background. Carrie's parents moved to Gahanna in the early 70s. They both had job opportunities here and recognized that Gahanna was going to be a great place to raise a family and pursue career opportunities. She went to school at Royal Manor and then spent some time both at Middle School West and Middle School East before graduating from Gahanna Lincoln High School. She was a member of the high school track team, earning a varsity letter for her service with the track team. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Carrie and her husband, Dwayne, now both continue to work for the Gahanna schools. They are very much in service to our students and to all the staff with the school district. They have 2 children, Kelsey and Rose. Kelsey has made her parents very proud grandparents, and Rose is also in the education field. Rose, as you may know, has carried on her mother's love for community service and is involved with the Arts Council here in Gahanna, really taking the lead on the Bright Box project last year. When I asked Carrie about why she was so motivated and so passionate about preserving Gahanna's history, Carrie shared with me that she's a cancer survivor, something that many of us may not know, and she's been 22 years cancer-free from recovering and conquering breast cancer. She wakes up excited every day to share and to remember what brings us here and why and the lessons of history. She's fascinated by the stories, the quirky stories that she's been able to uncover and share to our youth through learning about what some of the secrets of Gahanna are. And Carrie also shared with me that she's particularly motivated by how hard people work to give us all the things that we have, and that the abundance that we are able to enjoy today is through the sacrifice and the dedicated work of those who came before us. So with that, I just want to take some time to thank and recognize Carrie Hawk. If the rest of council would like to come join me on the floor and we can do some photos.
I'll let you go first. Oh, sorry. All right, 3, 2, 1. Got it.
Absolutely. Ms. Bowers?
Thank you. For those who have maybe made it to the library but didn't make it upstairs yet, I want to point out that Carrie and Christie's contributions are going to be permanently on display on the 2nd floor of the new Gahanna branch, where we have dedicated space to the history of Gahanna, and with prominent displays of the Big Walnut Country Club. So thank you to you both for that hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. And to add with that history, I had always heard the rumor, and down in Columbus, they always talk about back in the day when rail was actually going down Broad Street and out to Gahanna, and I never saw evidence on this side until I saw that history exhibit. There's the picture of the trolley, of the rail, right by the bridge out here. So I was just really happy to see that. So, and that is another piece of our story that we need to talk about. All right, item C, members of the public. I do have some speaker slips. If you have come in, you do want to address council, make sure that you see our clerk and fill it out. Per the rules, council rules, you step up to the podium, announce your name and address, and you will be given 3 minutes for your spiel. Mr. McClure, Tim McClure.
Hello? Well, my first item was taken care of, I think, by the mayor, so I didn't know if anybody knew this on council, but I went to...
Can you state your name and
Oh,
address for the record?
Tim McClure, 935 Leaf Lock Court. beautiful downtown Gahanna. I don't know if anybody knew this or not, but I went to Florida for a month, and when I got back, I got my water bill, and I hadn't used any water. I turned it off because I didn't want to have a flooded basement and washing machine, you know, or something. Anyways, I turned it off at the house, so there was no water coming in, and the bill showed 0 on there for water and 0 for sewer, but there was still 1,000 gallon charge for water. I guess it's a minimum charge. I didn't know if anybody knew that or not. And I'm sure we have a lot of residents that probably are snowbirds that go down to Florida for 3 or 4 months and end up paying for a water bill that they're really not using any water. So I just wanted to bring that to attention. The other thing is I got my Gahanna, I guess it's the bulletin for Parks and Recs on what's going on in spring and stuff. And I still haven't noticed anything in there about expanded senior center hours. Senior center is open to anybody, I believe, that's either 50 or 55. And a lot of people that are 50, 55, 60, 65 are still working. And so we can't do any of the stuff that they do during the day. And that's fine. I don't want to go to lunch at certain places and stuff like that with them, but I would like to do some of the things at night that they maybe do during the day, like a euchre event or a Wii party, or just get to know people and stuff. And I just think there ought to be some programming at night, and I thought we'd have some of that once we went back to, past COVID. So I don't know, maybe I need to take that to the Parks and Rec Committee, and I can go there and do that. The last thing I wanted to bring up was, I noticed this last year, and the reason why I'm bringing it up now is because I know it's slow to get things done, but there's a beautiful pine tree in Gramercy Park out here, right on Hamilton Road. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's like a natural Christmas tree. And I always wondered why we don't decorate it. And I did some research, and I found out a women's club used to decorate it until it got too tall for them to work on it. It was dangerous for them to use ladders to get up that high and stuff. So I didn't know if there was anything where we could use cherry pickers, where we could help those ladies, or maybe the city Parks and Rec could decorate it, because I think it's on a main thoroughfare into our city, and I think it would just be beautiful there to be decorated. That's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I think you wanted to say something?
If I could speak to the last issue. We'll have to look into the water bill, which I'll circle back with you on. And the expanded senior center hours, we'll talk to the staff as well. With regard to the tree, I saw you had posted that on Facebook at one point, and I actually reached out to our Parks and Rec department right around the time of the holidays. They looked into it. There is no electric. If they were to decorate the tree, there's no electric. So I don't know what they used to do in the past, if they connected it to somebody's residence over there, but there is no electric for them to now, if they were to decorate that, plug that in there. So that was why we did not do that during the holidays, but we can explore other opportunities going forward. But I want you to know, I did look into it.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's beautiful. We've driven past it in wintertime. You know, it's covered with snow, and we get snow once in a while. And I just think it would be beautiful. I think it would just be enhanced. Now, I know City Hall's moving up to the new place and everything like that, but I don't know what's going in here. But I'm sure someone would enjoy having that.
And we always take volunteers to help too, Tim.
I always volunteer. Creekside Jazz and Blues,
Yes, you
loyal
do.
volunteer. I think my 3 minutes is up. Otherwise, I'm not.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, Don Petrick?
Yes, my name is John Petrick. I live in 712 Fleet Run Avenue. And as you know, I'm usually here complaining about the parking. Ooh, okay, yeah, I guess it was up there, huh? I always talk about the parking in these streets. And I noticed a while now, but finally it just got to me, about the 5th house up, somewhere up there, there's just an oil slick going down there where this car parks, and it's terrible looking. And I know we try to beautify our city, but that was just paved here about 2 years ago, and already it looks bad. You know, something has to be done with that car park there, and I just can't believe that a person can't see what his vehicle is doing to that road. You have to be blind not to see the big black mark going down there, and if the person is blind, he shouldn't be driving, you know? So something has to be done with that. I don't know if there's a fine you could give him or make him clean it up or what, but the person ought to notice that there. Something has to be done. And another thing, I noticed the sweeper went down the street there, and you could see where it's going between the cars, and he's going down the middle. Well, there's no debris in the middle. It's all in the sides of the gutters. And he can't do the gutters because the cars are parked there. And if you come around a turn, you'll see where the water backs up when it rains hard because you got all the leaves and everything there from the fall. You know, let's beautify our city. Let's keep the streets clean. And yesterday, I was going down there by Landover. I'm halfway through, and here comes a car the other way. Now, it was barely enough for us to get through. That car had a ride in the gutter because those cars are parked there. They have places to park behind the building. You know, I don't think they pay any property taxes, yet there they are parked on a street. It's not a parking lot, it's a street. And nowadays, there's more kids graduating, more kids getting driver's license, and more parents are buying more cars, you know. But yet, if you turn and look where these cars are on the street, their driveway's wide open. Why don't we put signs up driveway? If you have room in a driveway, you have to park in a driveway. Now, I can see overnight or something like that or whatever, but every day, there's no way, God forbid if an ambulance or a big fire truck has to get up there, somebody's going to die or a house is going to burn. And I don't think we want that, just because these people don't want to park in their driveway. So we still got to do something about the parking and beautify our city. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. One item that you did talk about the oil, and if it's going down the gutter, it is against our law for anything to get into our storm sewer and going out to the waters of the state.
So to that point, Mr. Patrick stopped by my office earlier, or called, and I spoke to Lieutenant Moffett. He's going to check out that vehicle and see what's going on.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for bringing that. All right. Okay, next up is Ryan Spack. Mr. Spack? Oh.
My name is Ryan Spack. I live at 211 Carlin Court. I've been up here a couple times. I've spoken my piece. I've gotten to speak to a couple of you individually. I very much appreciate your time and your insights. And for the most part, I had kind of planned on not saying much for a little while. But then I saw the video of the February 13th Committee of the Whole meeting. And there was something that immediately jumped out to me, and it doesn't seem like anyone else really picked up on it, so here I am again. The comment that I'm referring to was made by Director Schultz when he was talking about the new building at Tech Center Drive. He talked about the amenities of the property, and then he went on to talk about the challenges. And the first thing he did was draw a big red arrow from the driveway at the street to the front of the building. And I'm going to read you his words exactly so that there's no misinterpretation. We've been discussing some of the issues and challenges we have with the site. The example that you see on the screen in the red arrow is that big old laneway that is basically probably a 60-mile-per-hour runway right into the front of the building. This comment is frustrating to me for two reasons. First, at the public input meeting for this building, I pointed out that the building doesn't meet our development guidelines and our recently adopted land use guidelines. And because of that, it's just not very friendly to people outside of cars. Now, we want developers to follow these guidelines and make our city a better place, but the minute it was financially advantageous for us, we immediately abandoned them. That's the example we've set for the conviction in our guidelines. Now, the response that I got at that meeting was that, in fact, the building can't be immediately adjacent to the road because a car could hop the curb and hit the police station, and that's a safety issue. And now here we are a couple months later in this meeting being told that the building is set so far back from the road that a car can enter the parking lot and accelerate and hit the police station, and that's a safety issue. So it's really starting to seem like the police station is just going to be this Goldilocks building that's going to support whatever narrative is convenient at the time. But I have a much bigger problem, and this is where I start going from being frustrated to being angry. Because the issue that Director Schultz pointed out is the exact same issue that I've pointed out every time that I've stood up here. And that is how you design and build a facility directly impacts how safe and usable that facility is. And when you give someone wide, flat, straight pavement, they can use that area for dangerous behavior. Now, when I talk about this in the context of our streets, the conversation seems to immediately go one way. That for the most part, we agree with you, but there's so many challenges. There's the challenge of cost. There's the challenge of public pushback when you want to change a road. There's the question of, is this really a valid concern, or is this just your perception? Maybe we need to do a speed study and find out. When Director Schultz raised these issues, there was zero concern about cost or public perception. There was zero question of whether this was a valid safety issue. It seems like it was just accepted as this obvious issue that needs to be fixed. Now, for reference, the pavement that Director Schultz was talking about is approximately 25 feet wide. The pavement at Creekside, where we want a large pedestrian presence, is 32 to 40 feet wide. The pavement by the high school, where we force children to be in the roadway, is 65 to 90 feet wide. The pavement at the end of my block, a residential street, is 36 feet wide. That is almost 45% wider than the 60-mile-per-hour runway Director Schultz was talking about. Now, I don't know how many cars have tried to ram your police station recently, but I do know by the city's own data, people drive in excess of 50 miles per hour on my residential road. At 50 miles per hour, if a car loses control, it's going right over the curb and right over the sidewalk. The very same sidewalk that myself and my family use to walk to our park. At 50 miles per hour, statistically, my family has less than a 10% chance of walking away from that. Now, I understand there's practical limits to what we can do, and that we can't just snap our fingers and undo all the bad decisions that have been done in the past, and that there's competing interests for public space, and that we're going to rationalize this building by saying that it's just what we have to do to meet code. But at the end of the day, a fundamental truth is being revealed here. When this building required an expedited schedule, you adapted your policies and procedures to make sure it happened. When this building didn't meet our development guidelines, we just ignored them. And when this building presented a safety issue that is ubiquitous in our city and oh so challenging to address anywhere else, we are going to pay millions of dollars to fix it in a parking lot without a second thought. So here's what I learned from that meeting. 1, the city understands what the issue is. 2, the city can identify the issue. And 3, the city can fix it if it wants to. So at the end of the day, here's the only conclusion that I can reach. No matter what gets said, the safety of my family walking to the parking lot or walking to school is apparently of less concern to this city than the safety of the front door of your new building, because you found a way to get that one done. And if me standing up here saying that offends you, then good, because it's shameful. And maybe this should be a moment of reflection for what our priorities really are. And if right now you're sitting there thinking that what I'm saying doesn't accurately reflect the values of our community, great, but don't bother telling me that. Show me what you have done that proves me wrong, because I'm watching what you're doing right now.
Thank you, Mr. Spack. I did invite you to join our various committees and commissions. I still extend that hand out to you. I deeply want you to talk to the administration. There is a process for everything, and it's not being ignored. So, thank you. All right. Item D, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as published? I have a first by Ms. Angelou, a second by Mr. Snetzer. Any discussion? All right. Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item E, ordinances for introduction and first reading. We're not going to take action on these, but I will read them into the record. Ordinance 11, 2023, an ordinance to accept easements of .011 plus or minus acres for general utility, 0.093 plus or minus acres for additional right-of-way, 0.1 189 plus or minus acres for sanitary sewer and accept public sanitary sewer improvements associated with the Alder Park development at the intersection of Morrison Road and Waterbury Court. Ordinance 13, 2023, an ordinance authorizing a supplemental appropriations damage to the city property. Ordinance 14, 2023, an ordinance authorizing supplemental appropriations water meter fees. And Ordinance 15, 2023, an ordinance authorizing supplemental appropriations, reduction in capital improvement fund, and increase in state capital grant fund. Item F, correspondence and actions. Mr. Clerk.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. My council colleagues, anything? All right, thank you. Item G, representatives, Community Improvement Corporation. I do have a report. If you may recall, CIC was going to meet the next day. So we did meet on Tuesday, February 21st at 8 o'clock in the committee rooms. CIC has held meetings with tenants and businesses in the Creekside area to discuss the status of the proposed Creekside project. CIC, we did, as a board, review the status of the contract and with the proposed developer and opted to extend the letter of interest until the end of April. CIC continues to evaluate candidates for open board seat. Chair Betty Collins has asked the board to look into the future as to what next objectives, mission goals should be. And the mayor and Betty also talked about need to focus on review of workforce development. And our meeting ended just after 9 a.m. Mr. Weaver, you have anything to add?
No, Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item is Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Ms. Angelou.
Thank you. Typically, I would be saying next Thursday we will have our commission here, but I want to go a little different because I think that we have been having so many things that I go and I try to do the things that I need to do, but somehow we don't get everything done. And there are so many things to get done at the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. So if you'd look at your things there, you can get where you can go in there, and it says, look at the thing, and you can pick up Karen J. Angel, council member at large, and it talks about what we're going to see tonight. And this is not going to be a long 1 hour thing to do. Hopefully this will keep us going. Over the past year or so, I think, maybe a little less than that, I've been sending all of you at council, the mayor, Mr. Attorney General there over there, to also our clerk of council, Jeremy Van Meter, and his deputy clerk, Pam Ripley. I would send all those to you. I don't know if you got them. Perhaps you did, perhaps you didn't. But it was just to keep you looking at what Morpsey is doing. So I think what happened was this wonderful person over here said, you know, I've been kind of looking at this, and perhaps maybe I can make this work a little bit better. And sure enough, I think it is going to work a little bit better, because everything that he gets now, he will put on to the system here, and we will have more time to do other things besides all of the wonderful things that Morpsey's doing. So I want to start today by just saying that there are so many things that they do at Morpsey that it becomes very, very difficult to keep everything going and everybody finding out. So if you look at that here, it says here that, for instance, the Morpsey highlights, Morpsey daytime, day-to-day, driving the region toward forward with data. I went to it. It was on March 1st, and it was at the Ohio University Dublin's Integrated Education Center. And the sessions attended included this is the ones that I went to, Winning Public-Private Partnerships, a case study. The lunch plenary was Michael Wilk, you would have loved this one, by the way, Wilco's Storytelling with Public-Private Partnerships, a case study, and it was all about, getting people to be able to live in wonderful places. He's a terrific person. And a drive in the future, data and technology and ODOT, and actually I had one that I went to that was libraries, which after this weekend, we know what libraries are all about. So this is a wonderful thing. It's going to, I think, be every year this way, this data. And it's, there were things there, and I'm going to tell you, this is the honest truth. The data part and all the things, I'm not an IT person. It was kind of a little over my head, but I pretended like I knew what I was doing. And I actually learned a little bit. So sometimes you have to do those things. Now, this Thursday, if you look there, MORPC's executive committee met the last time, and that was on Thursday, March 2nd, and this week will be the commission person. Now, we can talk about air quality alerts. I think that was one of them that was sent, and you can look at that and see what could happen if that's something that you're interested in, which we should all probably be interested in it. And Leaders Listen Survey. This is an interesting one because it's CHR, I guess, at the Ohio State Universities. Now, in 1965, this Center for Human Resource Research became something part that the Ohio State University did. And it's changed its business name to CHRR at the Ohio State University. So this is an interesting one because you can look at there, and if you can do this survey on this link, and it's also not only MORPC, but the dispatch is part of this, and it's through this CHRR at the Ohio State University. Now, we're coming up to the coming up events Thursday. It's going to be our time, and I have a wonderful thing to say. We are getting another community at MORPC. It's the city of Newark. And it'll be the second largest city of the 15 supposed things we have there. And we will be about at 82. When I first started going to the MORPC, it was 35. We're up to 82. And this is a wonderful thing to be able to have this at MORPC, to have Newark come through there. On March 10th, I'm also going to be going to the Executive Committee retreat, which is at the Philip Heights Center in New Albany. And the Executive Committee retreat is March 10th. Mr. Murdoch thanked New Albany actually for hosting us. The retreat includes Kenny McDonald sharing what's going on in the region for him, and a tour of Intel site is part of this. And we will also have discussions in strategic framework messaging. So this is going to be from about from 9 to 2:30. And then on Tuesday, March 28th, MORPC's open house on the transportation improvement programs is open. You can come and look at that. And that's from about 3:30 to 6:30. And last but not least, MORPC's State of the Region is on March 31st from 11 to 1, and it's the highlighting community accomplishments and showcase upcoming plans for the leading our region into the future. Keynote speaker will be Deputy Assistant Secretary Charles Small, U.S. Department of Transportation, and they're always a wonderful time to be. So this is kind of how we're going to do things, and I hope you will like it and think it, and I want to thank our clerk here for doing this for me. Thank you. Are there any questions? No.
Thank you. All right, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Badova.
Thank you. Thursday, March 16th from 11:30 to 1 is the Visit Gahanna annual meeting. It will be at the Gahanna Sanctuary this year. This is open to the public, and tickets need to be purchased by this Friday. So you can purchase those on visitgahanna.com. The Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival tickets went on sale last week, and there is early bird pricing offered through April 15th, which is $5 off per ticket. And just a reminder, they will be bringing back, I think it was new last year, that kids ages 10 and under and veterans are both free. And Sunday tickets are also going to be buy one, get one free. Marlowe's Cheesesteaks has been featured with articles in 2 local magazines recently, so they've been bringing some attention to Gahanna. They were featured in Columbus Monthly as well as City Scene. VisitGahanna.com recently received a facelift with several updates and additions, including multiple themed itineraries, which will also be included in the new visitor's guide coming out later this month. There have also been a lot of interest in the Ohio Herb Center's classes so far this year. Many have sold out or been very close to selling out, with topics including journaling in the garden, the art of pressed botanicals, self-care for healthy sleep, the art of tea, and landscaping with herbs. And I don't know about you all, but I keep bringing herbs home and they keep dying, so I might need to go down there myself and take some of these classes. So you can check those out at visitgahanna.com as well. Thank you.
Thank you. School Board, Ms. Bowers.
Yes, just a few brief items. First, congratulations to the Gahanna girls track team for capturing the Division I indoor state title on Saturday. They defended their Division I title from last spring's track and field season. I also wanted to congratulate Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation for a successful annual gala that was held at the end of February at Jefferson Country Club. It was an incredibly well-attended event. I know Mayor Jadwin was there, and it was absolutely packed shoulder to shoulder. So congratulations to the Education Foundation on a successful event. 2 upcoming events I wanted to highlight. I mentioned this one before, but there will be a mental health awareness program at Gahanna Lincoln High School's auditorium next week on March 13th at 7 o'clock. There will be speakers from the Nationwide Children's Hospital. They have an extensive new mental health wing with the Big Lots Mental Health Pavilion. Also speakers from the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation. All are welcome, and there is, of course, free entry to that. There is also another program coming up that I wanted to highlight in partnership between the schools and the city, along with our Gahanna Police Department, and I apologize if the mayor might be presenting this in her report as well, but I'll briefly mention that there is a program, a Gahanna Forum supporting our youth on Wednesday, March the 15th at 6:30 at Gahanna Middle School West Auditorium. And that will conclude my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item A, official reports. Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, the last several days have been very exciting here in Gahanna. Over the weekend, as you all know, I think you were all there, we celebrated the official grand opening and dedication of the new Gahanna branch of the Columbus Metropolitan Library. It was a phenomenal day. I'm sure those people are still exhausted from the weekend that they had. But I was talking to a library representative who said he has attended every one of their grand openings, and it was by far the most well-attended event. He was quite in awe of the number of people who showed up Saturday morning and then throughout the day. So Gahanna, again, shows up in full force, as they always do. Building is absolutely beautiful for the members of our community who have not yet had a chance to see it. The thoughtful design of the 3-in-1 concept, thanks to Gahanna resident Michael Siriano, it's just spectacular. And I know Councilwoman Bowers earlier in her presentation with the resolution referenced the historical display that's upstairs, which we did not know. I did not know that Lily Stone was actually a person. I always thought it was a thing, so I was quite amazed to see the picture of Lilystone. It was actually Sharon Suriano and I were both at the same time. We both saw it at the exact same moment. So really neat part of our history. Also, it's a $22 million investment in our city by the Metropolitan Library System, which just goes to show their dedication to our community and how much they value Gahanna. And we know that obviously Gahanna values that branch. Sunday, the Gahanna Community Chorus did an encore presentation, a free concert at the high school. Wonderfully packed house for that. I think they were almost 100% capacity for that. And again, always amazed at the talent that we have here in the city of Gahanna. And if they would only move their rehearsals, we could get 8 new members. Ray, I don't know if you'd want to join, but I'm sure we could all add a lot. But unfortunately, they practice on Monday evenings. But if you ever get a chance to see them in the future, make sure you do so. They're spectacular.
Stand-up comics.
I don't think they take comedy yet. You never know. As a reminder, tomorrow evening, March 7th, right here in council chambers, we will hold the town hall discussion on the Comprehensive Parks Master Plan. The plan, which we've been working on again for months, will guide decision-making on policy, operations, maintenance, and capital improvements for the Department of Parks and Recreation, really for the next decade. We'll begin at 6 o'clock here. It also will be live streamed for folks who aren't able to make it either in person or not even tomorrow night, that they could go back and watch it. It will be available up on our YouTube channel. And we invite all of our residents to attend to learn more, to provide an opportunity. It's an opportunity for them to ask questions before a final draft of that plan is finalized and presented to council in just a few weeks. Also, Councilwoman Bowers, thank you for referencing the Gahanna Forum that we will be doing next week in partnership with Gahanna Jefferson Public Schools. And it's really to discuss some of the challenges that we are facing and our teens and children are facing in our community. The environment is much different today for them than it was for many of us when we were growing up. Challenges that we're all struggling with how to deal with, and certainly they are as well. You may recall that last summer, we had to implement some changes to our pool rules in response to behaviors that our staff was seeing in patrons who were visiting the pools. And we heard from people, from staff members, as to what they were experiencing there. There are similar issues happening in our schools, and if you watch the news or read social media, you know that that's not exclusive to Gahanna. It's happening nationwide. So during the forum next week, Dr. Deagle and members of her administrative staff, Chief Spence and I will be part of a forum discussion to talk about what we are seeing in the community, what the schools are doing, what we can all do to help address challenges that we see with youth and how we can best support them. And there will be an opportunity for Q&A as well. So again, that is 6:30 next Wednesday, the 15th, at Gahanna Middle School West Auditorium. Also, just for your calendars, a reminder, State of the City, Thursday, March 23rd. That will be at 825 Tech Center Drive. Doors will open at 5:30. That will run from 5:30 to 8. The program will begin around 6:15. A great opportunity for the community to come in and see the building beforehand, but an even better opportunity for the community to come in and hear what we have been working on for the city and what is ahead for us as we move forward. Finally, I wanted to address an issue. I know some of you have reached out to me over the weekend as well. There's been a great deal of discussion on social media around a project. It's a plan for a Sheetz gas station up at the corner of Morse Road and 62, and a parcel of property in the northeast corner of our city. I'd like to try to help clear up maybe some of the confusion around that project, around where it is today and how it got to where it is today, if I can have your indulgence for a few minutes. First of all, the city did not pursue that project. The parcel of land in issue is owned by a private property owner. We've talked a lot in this council chambers around private property rights. When a private property owner wants to develop a parcel of property, they have the right to do so as long as it is consistent in the manner in which that property is zoned. In this case, the land that was an issue is zoned, I think, neighborhood commercial. Gas stations in our code are identified as a potential conditional use for that zoning area. Per the process that we have in place, a developer and the applicant submitted an application to the Planning Commission for approval to have conditional use granted. In other words, for approval to have a gas station as a conditional use on that property. It was reviewed by staff. There was a public hearing held in front of Planning Commission. The Planning Commission heard that application on November 2nd. It's still available on YouTube. People can go back and watch it. Planning Commission, upon review, denied the application for conditional use. That vote was 6-1. They also had on the agenda that evening an application for the final development plan and the final design review. Those two issues were not heard that evening because once the conditional use was denied, there was no need to hear the FDP, as we call it, and design review. Following Planning Commission's decision, the applicant appealed that decision to the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals, also known as BZBA. That was scheduled for public hearing right here in council chambers. It was held January 26th. I know several of you were here that night. We had a packed house. That evening, BZBA, which, like Planning Commission, is comprised of Gahanna residents who are appointed to that commission and board, heard that application, heard that appeal. They reversed the Planning Commission's decision and granted the conditional use for that property, which means the gas station has been approved as a conditional use for that parcel. So that gives them approval to build a gas station on that property. What will happen now is it will go back to Planning Commission. I believe it's scheduled for this Wednesday, two days from today, to hear the final development plan and the design review that were not previously heard when Planning Commission had denied that conditional use. At that hearing, which is again Wednesday, Planning Commission will review the things that are set forth in the code that are basically the on-site mechanics and logistics, so to speak, of that project. Things like what materials will be used, the design of the building, how the parking lot lays out, the signage, the lighting in that area, things that are identified in code on site. What Planning Commission will not review, because it's not in their purview, are things like traffic. Traffic is not reviewed by Planning Commission. If the FDP is approved and the design review are approved, then the internal departments of the city, i.e., in this case, the Department of Engineering specifically, will review the traffic and the implications of this project in that area. Building and zoning, building and all of those parks and recreation for landscaping and all those other departments will be involved as well. About 7 or 8 departments will eventually touch this project as it goes through the process. But I know the concerns have been around traffic, so that's why I want to address that. This intersection, Morse and 62, as well as the Morse Road corridor, involves multiple jurisdictions. It involves City of Columbus, it involves Franklin County, it involves New Albany. Because of that, it is likely that the other jurisdictions who have an interest in that area also will give some input as to what the traffic implications of this project are. I will share that the Franklin County Engineer's Office already has reached out and expressed an interest in reviewing the traffic study that was initially done back in February of '22 to take a look at that and specifically around what the implications are on that roundabout area, because Franklin County put a lot of money into that roundabout years ago. And I live in that area and I remember how much that roundabout was needed. But I know that they have already reached out upon hearing about the project and we have sent them the earlier traffic study, and they will continue to work with our engineering department if it is approved at Planning Commission on Wednesday night. So I just wanted to clarify that because I think there's some misunderstanding as to if the project is moving forward, what's it doing, where is it? Again, the gas station has been approved. That ship has sailed. That ship sailed the night of BZBA on January 26th. Now it's up to the actual design of that project. That'll be Planning Commission this Wednesday. So if you receive any questions from residents about that, please feel free to have them reach out to us. We will connect them, whether that's to Director Schultz or to Director Comlank, whichever director is most appropriate given their questions. But hopefully, Wednesday night is an opportunity for people to come and be heard. There's a public hearing on that as well. But again, engineering, traffic, those types of issues are not within the purview of Planning Commission. So those will not be discussed on Wednesday night. If there's any questions from any of you, I'm happy to entertain those as well, but I thank you for the opportunity to just help walk through what that project is.
Mayor, thank you very much for that very good summary of everything. And I think it's really needed for our community, so thank you. One of the complicating factors, and you point out very precisely about the millions of dollars that Franklin County taxpayers have actually spent on that roundabout. And another complicating factor is the discussions that I've seen about a stoplight that has nothing to do with the city of Gahanna, but another entity is contemplating installing that. Can you talk to that any tonight?
Simply just to clarify or add to what you just said, I believe that question came up, I think it was at the Planning Commission hearing, again, which was November 2nd. But the stoplight there is a stoplight that's being proposed as part of the traffic study. The proposed location, I believe, is Albany Chase and Morse Road, if I remember from the initial plans. That is a City of Columbus stoplight. The City of Columbus signed off on that. That is not a City of Gahanna stoplight. So that is why it's very important that the multiple jurisdictions that are all impacted by this are on the same page and are all looking at the same thing. And I also believe that traffic study might have been done before the Morse Road rezoning on the acreage that's in that same locale was done. I don't remember, and off the top of my head, to what extent, if any, that was wrapped into the traffic study. But I do know that obviously that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Ms.
Can I ask
McGregor?
a question? Who paid for the traffic study?
I believe it was the developer that they're typically required to do that.
Where is the light, where is the light going to be, supposedly?
It's not definite. But what,
I know, but
yeah,
where
what was initially, and I don't want to now get in, I shouldn't have gone this far into the weeds, but the light that was initially projected is, I think it's Albany Chase and Morse Road as part of that project. But that's what needs to be examined and looked at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. Since Sheets was brought up, I would like to expound a little bit on that for the council members, because I'm sure you're going to get some questions from people about how these things work. The Planning Commission has public comment. That's where the public comment portion occurs in these matters. When a case gets appealed to the BZBA, that is an appeal. There are parties involved. There are appellants and there are appellees. Those are the people who present the evidence. If there's any public comment given during a BZBA hearing, that's not even evidence. It's not to be considered as evidence. The only evidence that the BZBA can consider is what is presented by the parties. It's just like a court of appeals, although it's a board of appeals. So it's a very, very different animal than the Planning Commission. And so that's how that process works, though, as opposed to the Planning Commission. So the only thing the board BZBA can consider is they're allowed to look at what happened at the Planning Commission, and we even sent them a link to the actual meeting so they could look at that if they wanted instead of just a transcript. And then they listen to the evidence as presented here. There's a motion made to incorporate everything that happened into the Planning Commission. Then they take all that into consideration, and they merely decide. They don't decide if the Planning Commission's wrong. They decide if, based upon the evidence they heard, did the appellant carry their burden of proof for the conditional use to be granted, and that's what they did. I hope that explains a little bit more about how that process works, since it is very different from the Planning Commission that everyone's used to. And we don't use the BZBA very much. I think it's only the second hearing I've had in the 3 years I've been here. And are there any questions concerning that? Okay. With that said, the only other thing I'd like to say is I won't be here next Monday. The very capable Matt Roth will be here to answer any questions, and if he's unable, I'm sure he'll do a nice song and dance and pass it on to me, and we will get to your answers, though. Okay. And that's all.
Mr. Malarski, thank you very much for taking the time out to explain that piece. All right. Item I, council comment. Ms. Angelou.
Well, it's just wonderful things happening in Gahanna, so let's hope that we can get the weeds moved around. The concert was wonderful, the library was wonderful, and you would wake up every morning going, this is just like, our city is just becoming this really incredible place, and I'm so proud of it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. McGregor.
Thank you. I just want to say the library opening was wonderful. It's a beautiful building, and it looks so different with stuff in it than it did on our hard hat tour when there was no drywall or anything. And the historical exhibits are really great. Carrie had all the stuff laid out, but somehow in those cases it looks really nice. it was all kind of laid up on tables in the Clark House, and it looks really nice. And my favorite thing, if you get a chance to look, is in one of them, it's the little rings. I think they're made out of walnut, maybe, but they're wedding rings that were carved by the Ridenauer, John Ridenauer. And, well, he was in the Civil War, and he carved these wedding rings because they had a lot of time, and they're carved, they have their initials, his initials and her initials on it. And to me, that's just the neatest thing that we have that. And so it's easy to overlook. So if you get there, look for the little wedding rings. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
Yes, just on that, I mentioned I would come back to Carrie Hawk's participation on the track and field team. If you'll also notice in the enclosures, there is a letter, a varsity letter. Carrie donated that from herself. It was a letter that was awarded to her. And Carrie wants to make sure that we recognize that she loves to play the supporting role and was the manager for the track and field team in high school, which is how she earned her letter, which is no less important than the athletes. And so I just wanted to make sure I came back to that. So thank you again, Carrie. And again, thank you, Christy, as well, for all your work in telling the history of Gahanna. Thank you to Mr. McClurg tonight for raising the need for and request for expanded senior services. That is a growing trend across the region. It's certainly one that we have been talked to about by Regionomics professional that consults here with the city and across the region on a regular basis is the aging population and continued need to support our seniors. I know Mr. Weaver has been active in exploring the Villages model, and there is a national age-friendly initiative that is being discussed across the region. So it is something that I think regionally we're aware of, and just making sure that it continues to remain a priority for our community, along with other priorities. Congratulations to the Columbus Metropolitan Library, not just for the 150-year anniversary that we celebrated, not just for the brand new state-of-the-art Gahanna Library branch location, but also for the recognition by the Children's Hunger Alliance for the Program of the Year. The Columbus Metropolitan Library, along with many other award recipients and organizations, were recognized at this year's annual Menu of Hope event this past Wednesday. I had the pleasure of being the guest of my neighbor, Cindy Bass, to attend that event, and the library was recognized because they ensure that young people who interact with the library aren't doing so while hungry. One of the statistics that was highlighted during the Menu of Hope reception was that 1 in 5 Ohio youth are hungry. They are food insecure, which means they don't know where their next meal is coming from. And we're seeing that play out across the region, including in Gahanna, with increased demand on our food pantries, including increased demand on GRIN. So as GRIN prepares for some changes and some development, we have other food pantries in our community. I would just ask that residents continue to keep in mind the growing need and food insecurity of our friends and neighbors. Finally, I wanted to just highlight as well that there was a significant transportation budget passed by the Ohio House this week. One of the provisions in this bill paves the way for Amtrak to connect Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. It also requires additional safety measures for trains passing through Ohio to help curb some of the infrastructure problems and relaxed safety measures that we have seen cause so many problems with 2 recent derailments in Ohio. This was a bipartisan bill. It was passed with both Republican and Democrat support and allocates about $2.2 billion for pavement projects across Ohio. So thank you to the Ohio House, and now on to the Senate for continued deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Badova.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleague, Ms. Bowers, and also Mr. Van Meter for putting together the resolution for Women's History Month today. I would also like to thank Ms. Evans and Ms. Hawk for their work in digging up and then also telling the stories of Gahanna's history. I was also able to experience the new library over the weekend and saw Ms. Evans and Ms. Hawk's contributions, and they were beautifully displayed, and I would encourage everybody to stop by and check that out. And speaking of the library, as everyone has mentioned here, it is wonderful. If you've not been to it yet, I definitely encourage you to check it out. It is just so nice and such a great investment in our city, as the mayor noted. I'm not sure if I was more impressed by the beautiful design on the outside or the impeccable details on the inside, or just all the community who showed up on Saturday. Everywhere I looked, there were people smiling and excitement on everyone's faces. I think it was probably the best birthday party that I've been to, celebrating 150 years. So it was wonderful, and I am very excited to go back and spend a lot of time there over the quite a few years. That is all from me today.
Thank you. Mr. Snetzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'll sound a bit redundant. I'm also pleased to see the new library is opened as well. I noticed online for a couple of days there I wasn't able to reserve any books, and I felt like I was missing out on something. Obviously understandable, they were in transit. The library is a beautiful amenity for the community. I can remember back when I was living in Old Gahanna, walking to the library and using it as a study facility for some professional certifications. So in some respects, I guess I kind of owe my professional station in life to the local library. And then now, my household uses it very frequently. The young boys were there over the weekend getting a couple of books and DVDs. So again, a great amenity and community asset. I want to thank all the speakers as well as our, I guess we'll call them guests of honor today, coming out and making time for us. And with that, that's all from me.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, want to thank our speakers during public comment. My colleagues and I greatly appreciate public comment, and it's always welcome, so thank you for that. Also want to thank Ms. Bowers and Clerk Van Meter for the Women's History Month resolution, for your efforts on that. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you, Ms. Evans and Ms. Hawk, for all that you do in service to our community. Just a small token of our appreciation this evening, but thank you. Also enjoyed the wonderful performance of the Gahanna Community Chorus yesterday afternoon. Lovely to see Ms. Bowers, the mayor, there as well. Am I forgetting it? Ms. Angelou, thank you. I knew that. I'm sorry. Nice to see the community turn out in support of a newer endeavor in our community, bringing joy and music when live performances have been shut down for so long. So special thanks to Director Kate Cremeen and all those who were participating. Several great events at the library. You've heard plenty from my colleagues on that. Honored to attend and see the project completed, filled with books, but even more importantly, filled with members of the community, getting to enjoy this just downright impressive facility. A special congratulations to Mike Suriano, the architect of the building, as well as the Gormans and all the community partners who made the building possible. And that is it for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I, too, also want to thank Ms. Evans and Ms. Hawk. Thank you so much for your long history and contributions to our beautiful town. So thank you again, and it's wonderful to play a small role in awarding you something. So thank you. To our speakers tonight, thank you. We always appreciate residents to come and talk to us, whether we like it or not, whether it's hard to hear or not. It is constructive and it is meaningful. The library, as you heard, fantastic. If you haven't yet gone and visited the library, you've done yourself a disservice. So hurry up, get over there and go see that. And it's, as some people have already addressed, it is a beautiful asset, and it's something it helps position us into the 21st century. So please go check that out. And I love, Ms. Padova, I love how you said it's a great, probably one of the best birthday celebrations. I think that's actually really good. I want to finish with the fact that it is March. I started that, in disbelief in this meeting. Can't believe it, again. But we know that March is changing weather patterns. And we also know that there's lots of change and people want to get outside. We also are hearing that there is lots of anxiety over some of this change. I just ask simply if everybody in our community can just take a deep breath and just listen and take a slower posture to everything. Maybe you didn't hear something correctly, maybe you're not 100% right about something, and so just speak and even kill tones. And I am very confident that we have all the right people in our city to actually address things. So without anything else, I just want to ask, is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Done. Good night, everybody.